Hey girls,
So I want you guys to spread out over here. I'll tell you who I am.
let me take 2 minutes. So, Tae Parson, who I just met this afternoon, so I can't tell you any old stories about him or anything like that. But the people I've spoken to who have worked with him say he's great. He's really got a lot to offer. And for those of you who were here the last time when we did this, I'll say take advantage of the people who are willing to come out and talk to us. He's going to show you a bunch of exercises and talk to you about himself and his philosophy and all those sorts of things. And then we'll certainly have an opportunity toward the end to ask questions. Ask questions. If there's things that you really are interested in or you didn't understand, let's clear them up. Okay? So, with that, okay.
I'm Tae Parson. My official degree is like a doctor of physical therapy. I have too many letters after my name to list them, and I don't feel like they matter anyway. But ultimately, I want to make sure I put some tools in your toolbox because I want to keep you out of my clinic. I don't want you to be injured. Been working with, the main connection was Josie with her post-ACL recovery, and so she thinks I'm all right with this. So we'll go from there.
We'll ask her about that.
Yeah, right. Results will speak for themselves, we'll say that. Briefly about me, I played football and ran track when I was in high school. Went to the University of Washington and played football there. Had the opportunity to run track, had an injury of my own, had an ACL tear that kept me off of the track in college, but kind of pushed me into this path. So grateful for that, knocked me off of the pre-med stuff. I'm so grateful I didn't end up being the orthopedic surgeon I thought I would be at age 10, 11, 12. And so I think I have the coolest job in the world because it's all about just helping people move their bodies more effectively. And my goal today is, I know it's Sunday afternoon and I don't want to bore you. I'm going to have you moving around a bunch. I'm going to have you trying some of these things, and ultimately I'm going to make you feel a little goofy because our body doesn't care what's right. You tell it to run, to jump, to cut, to shoot, it's going to get the job done, right? Whatever biases, stiffnesses, restrictions you bring to that party determine how you move. And we have some pretty clear-cut patterns where if we're lacking in a specific control of a position, if we're lacking in specific strength, it can help push us towards a higher potential for injury. And so our goal today is to try to stop that. One more quick spiel about my philosophy with this. We are resilient creatures as humans. When have you guys ever thought about how you've been running or cutting or playing softball or lacrosse, right? You go and you do it and your body gets it done. And so my job is to try to break that down a little bit more and help set you up for success so that when you get to the field, the court, whatever it is, it's easy and you can just go and execute and not have to worry about injury in the back of your head. All right? We're going to separate some talking with some exercises, and ultimately knee injuries get a lot of play, get a lot of attention, and in soccer that's kind of one of the loudest is an ACL tear, season-ending injury, something like that. Our knees, when we look at our anatomy, and I'll show you some anatomy here towards the end, but effectively we don't produce force here at our knee. We produce force here at our engine, at our hip, and we interact with the ground and produce force down at our ankle. And typically, if there's a breakdown somewhere at the knee, or if you have a knee injury, it's due to an imbalance of the way that we are producing force either above or below in the chain. And so what we're starting is we're going to take your guys' shoes off and socks off. We're going to ask you to be a little goofy here. And we're going to ask your feet to be feet today.
This is the dangerous one.
I know. If your knee, if we got some stinky toes, then just blame your knee. We have just as much space in the motor cortex of our brain for controlling our foot, our ankle, our toes, as we do for our hands, our wrists, our fingers. We don't really treat our feet like that, right? We put them in shoes, we put them in boots and lacrosse cleats or whatever, and we expect them to do their job, right? And ultimately, we need to make sure that our connection to the ground is as optimal as possible, so that when we put them in cleats, whatever support is in your running shoes or your cleats, it's extra. And right now, you're gonna see that your feet don't quite have that control that we need them to have, all right? So we're gonna go through 3 exercises here. I'm just gonna show you because I like these two. We're gonna think about a tripod foot, all right? That's the ball of your big toe, ball of your pinky toe, and your heel, all right? Those 3 spots stay on the floor on both feet, okay? We're gonna do some toe yoga to start, all right? Toe yoga, we're gonna start with our big toes. Big toes go up, keep your 4 toes down, and then big toes go down, 4 toes come up.
Whoa, what?
Whoa, what is exactly the response I was expecting. So, when you go to lift your big toes, don't let the ball of your big toe come up. And when you go to lift your 4 toes, don't let the outside of your toes come up.
Wait, what if you can't do it?
Oh no.
I promise you have the software, and I promise you have the hardware, but they haven't talked in a while. And that's exactly the point. It's like you can't do it because you haven't asked your feet to do this before, right? Even if it's not doing exactly what you expect it to do, at least as long as you're focusing on that and trying to ask your feet to kind of try to perform this, there's going to be a benefit to it. Some people getting cramps in your feet a little bit, muscles working, hard to make this happen. The point of this exercise is to try to make sure that there's a proprioception, fancy word for your knowledge of where you are in space. So like if you close your eyes and hold your hand up, you know where that hand is. That's proprioception. It's kind of like our 6th sense. As an athlete, you're focusing on the ball. You've got to go be able to plant, make a cut, make a pass, whatever, without having to think about where your body is in space. This is how we try to get that connection here through your feet. Now, with toe yoga and these other exercises I'm going to show you here, there's a hierarchy. You guys are struggling with both feet on the ground, right? Running, is it a single leg or a double leg activity? Josie, you can't answer.
Single?
No, I said you can't.
Single.
Running, you're only ever on one foot, right? You're floating in between. And so that means we better have good single leg stability, right? And so our goal is to go from double leg to single leg with a kickstand. So I want you guys to try that. So one leg is elevated and chilling, and then the other one is trying to do that toe yoga.
Oh,
More challenging to get that foot to listen to you, right? And then ultimately we're trying to get into a single leg as well. And I know we're not here yet, but I just want to show you kind of what the goal is. All right? So I want to do 2 more here, and then I want to talk to you a little bit more, but does it make sense why we would be doing something like this? Probably not. No, we'll get there. We'll get there. I don't know who's listening, but it's okay. Number 2, we're gonna do some arch yoga. So I'm turning 45 degrees here so you can see the arch of my foot here, all right? We're gonna have both feet on the ground, and I want you to feel like you're trying to flatten your arch as far as you can, but don't lift your tripod, right? So as you're driving in, your pinky toe doesn't come up. And as you're driving out to create an arch, your big toe doesn't come up. Trying to keep your foot nice and stable, flatten that foot, create as big an arch as you can as you go. Try to alternate back and forth. Can you go from one foot to the other, alternating back and forth? So flatten, arch,
it doesn't look
flatten, arch. Now, a lot of your guys' mid feet have always been supported by nice, healthy, supportive shoes, right? 10,000 years ago when we were chasing gazelles, did we have Nikes and Ons and Hokas? Probably not. And so ultimately our body is use it or lose it. If we are always in nice hyper-engineered shoes, which we've only had for the last 70 years or so, then our body loses the ability to perform that action. And so we're trying to teach your muscles to have control over what's happening at your arch. Because if you watch my knee, if you don't have control over what's happening at your arch, there's a lot of extra motion happening here at the knee that we don't quite have the control over, all right? And so arch yoga has the same kind of hierarchy. So you're going flattening, arching, in a kickstand as well. Try that. Where most of your weight is on that one foot, but then you've got the kickstand to give you some support. And then eventually, the goal is to be able to do that arch yoga nice and in control on a single leg. Following so far. I don't expect you to remember everything, remember all of the anatomy. I just want to show you some of these movements and why they're relevant. I'm going to show you one more, and then we're going to do some more talking. You're going to think about that tripod foot we just talked about. Ball of your big toe, ball of your pinky toe, and your heel, all right? Those things stay on the floor. I want you to feel like you grab the tile with your arch, not your toes. Feel like you turn your arch on here when you're standing. All right. From there, we're going to keep our body in a nice straight line. You're going to tilt as far as you can forward without your heels coming up, and then shift back to that starting point. And you'll probably lose your balance a little bit too. We want to go as far as we can, keeping our heels down and shifting back, and you should feel the muscles in your feet, kind of the ones that are working, should change a little bit. At our foot and our ankle here, we have intrinsic foot muscles that start and end of the foot. We have extrinsic foot muscles that start up here in our calf. It's not just the calf that you see creating stability, it's all of these other muscles that have long levers that help us control our ankles, help us control the force going through our knee, and ultimately we're trying to make sure all of them are coming along for the party every time you go and plant and cut and jump and all that kind of stuff. All right, I see a lot of stunned looks. Gone over a lot in a short amount of time. Any questions so far? No? All right. Moving up the kinetic chain a little bit. When you guys run, if you're trying to sprint, typically there's a forward lean happening, right? Like if you look at the fastest athletes in the world on the track, they're not running perfectly upright until they're at full stride. When you're starting in a sprint, you've got a little bit of a forward lean. That's not an accident. It's always easier to push something than it is to pull something. I have to put an asterisk there because I'm sure somebody's gonna think of a very specific example when that's not the case. But in order to be as efficient as possible, we wanna be able to push our bodies effectively, not have to pull ourselves with our quads and our hip flexors. Quad and hip flexor strength isn't a bad thing, but if that's the only thing you have to create stability, create speed, create explosiveness, then you're going to be inefficient compared to what we could be if we're able to use our engine more effectively. All right? So, where do I want to start this explanation for you guys? Let's think about a squat. Who wants to come up and show me their squat form?
Lily does.
Come on up.
Yay, Lily.
So Lily, I want you to face this direction, and I'm gonna give you no cues. If you had a bar on your back and you're doing a squat, what does it look like?
Like just squat.
Just squat. Nice. Do another one here in slow motion. Take 5 seconds to go down and 5 seconds to come up. Nice. Okay. When we're watching Lily squat here from this angle, that's why she's sideways, I want you to take a look at where her pocket is as she goes to sit down. All right? One more squat here in that slow motion, 5 seconds here. You see how she has to sit her hips back before she sits down? Great form, by the way. Like that's kind of what we're looking for. Often, when we're very quad dominant, hip flexor dominant, there will be too much of this knees going forward. That's going to be a bad mechanics and kind of hard to get down. You get it. I want to tell you a little bit more about what our femurs look like. Can you guys picture like a Lego person? You know how like their legs plug in from the bottom and they really only move like this, right? We don't do that, obviously. Our femurs don't plug in perfectly from the sides. We have a little bit of an external rotation bias, as in where our femoral head attaches to our pelvis compared to where the neck goes down, sits behind. All right, so can you picture that? That like, it's kind of like an L situation. I'll show you like more of an anatomy picture to make that make sense here in a second. But effectively, we don't move perfectly into flexion. And because of that, most people will squat more efficiently with a little bit of external rotation here. Now, as a proof of concept, I'm not the end all be all, but as an example, if I try to go shoulder width here and keep my toes facing straight forward and I try to squat, that's all I got, right? Because I'm not squatting for my anatomy, I'm not moving for my anatomy. I have a little bit extra external rotation. I'm just gonna turn my toes out just a little bit. And now I can get all the way down here into a squat. And so the goal here is to try to make this motion optimal. And so we're just gonna do a few squats here. All right, so spread out, make sure you don't stand on each other. And I want you to start with your shoulders, your feet just about shoulder width apart. Turn your toes out just a little bit. And before we start the sitting down piece, I want everybody to just kind of hinge like this. You're just trying to set your butt back behind you, and then bend your knees and start into that squat. 5 seconds down, come in nice and smooth. Good. Driving back up, nice and smooth. I love how many things I could fix if I had a limited time today. We're gonna do one more. I'm gonna come over this way, and I need to pick out a good example for this next piece. So.
Awesome from here. Yeah, all right.
All right, one more. Nice 5 seconds down, and then 5 seconds back up. Ready, go. Good. All right, we're gonna bring 3 people up to the front. Josie, I want you to go in the middle, like up here in the front, in the middle. You just joined us with your sweater and jeans, great moving clothes. You're gonna go here on that end, and then. Who else feels good? Foot bandage. I don't know anybody's name, I'm sorry. Okay, you're all gonna face this way. We're gonna go one by one here into this example, all right? So go ahead and show me your squat. And I want you guys to observe the difference in how her body moves versus Josie's. Good. There's not a right or a wrong here, I guess I should point that out. I think there are a lot of ways for us to move our bodies, and some are optimal and some are suboptimal, but I wouldn't say that things are wrong, you're just moving in a different way. If we're trying to bulletproof you guys, like to prevent injury and such, yes, I think there is a way that we can reinforce good mechanics versus bad mechanics. Our first squat, you have tons of mobility in your hips, and so you're able to just start this motion easily without adding this hinge to start. Whereas Josie has a much longer femur here, and so in order to get around her femur, she has to start a little bit more of a hinge. You guys still have equal range of motion as you go down. So both of you guys go one more time at the same time here, and then just hold that at the bottom of the squat. Ready, set, squat. And so they can both get to about the same depth, but Josie has a little bit of a different lever to get around than our first squat. You in the front, go and stand up. All right, this is not to flame you up. This is just to point out a difference in mechanics here. All right, show us your squat one more time here. All right, so you see how she kind of hits a wall there? We're gonna fix this. All right, I want you to feel like as you sit down into your squat, you're gonna feel like you're trying to twist your foot on the floor, but don't let your foot twist. All right, give it a shot. Like actively feel like you're trying to turn that out. You still kind of hit a wall, right? Okay, go slightly wider with your feet. And then point your toes just a little bit more out to the side. One more time. See how that's just easier for you? Again, you have really long femurs. Yours are a little bit longer than Josie's. That's why we picked you guys. But effectively, your mechanics are going to look a little bit different than somebody with a shorter lever. You see how we're kind of illustrating how our bodies are all slightly different, and there's like an optimal versus suboptimal? Kind of a little bit. Cool. Awesome. Thank you guys. You can head back over. Questions on any of that we've gone over so far? Cool.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it better or worse to have to hinge forward?
It's not the right question. I think you're curious about like whether you're losing something if you have to hinge, right?
Yeah.
No. No. Basically, this is a way that you can kick into your posterior chain so that you're not having to rely on just the stuff that's anterior. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And our equipment can do a lot of things for us, and this is one of the reasons I have you guys out of your shoes. In most of your shoes, there's a little bit of a heel to toe drop, right? Like just look around and see how these running shoes, these light blue ones here in the back, but where the heel meets the toe, there's a little bit where the heel would be above, versus, I'll kind of have a little bit of that. Versus these up here, they're extremely flat. I don't expect to radicalize all of you guys this way yet. But our body gets used to the forces that we put on it, and if we're always working out in a little bit of this, it's going to bias you into these mechanics because that's just easier to do versus being able to keep those heels down and hinge. But if you look at all of your soccer boots, we still call them boots, right? Those are flat. And so if you're always training in something that's a heel to toe drop, and then you go and are in a completely different environment in your soccer cleats, soccer boots, right? Your body's not quite perfectly prepared for that. And so what the hinge does is it helps retrain these faulty mechanics. And I think that's the purpose of it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, it
Is that a lie?
No, I'm not.
Okay, just checking. Cool. Okay, next concept for you. Am I giving you too much, too fast? Is some of this resonating a little bit? 8%, 10%? Cool. As humans, we bend, we tilt, and we twist, all right? These are kind of our planes of motion as a human, and you're not gonna remember this, but that's the sagittal plane, the frontal plane, and the transverse plane. A trick question here, do you ever do any of those things perfectly isolated? Like if you're playing soccer, can you think of anything on the soccer pitch that is only one plane? And I'll buy you a cookie if you can think of one. No, right? And so we better be as bulletproof as possible in all three planes so that we can be explosive and controlled in all the scenarios that sports puts you into, all right? And so when we think about the exercises that we've worked on so far, we're working toe yoga. That is a transverse plane motion where you're asking your midfoot to do something different. Arch yoga is the same situation. This is control in that sagittal plane, but all of the muscles aren't perfectly in line like L's, and so we're challenging you in different ways, all right? What I want to do here is we're going to do a motion that feels very sagittal, all about glute, but you're going to notice that it's going to translate to these next ones that get you out of that motion, okay? So we're all going to turn 90 degrees, we're going to face the windows. We're going to put one foot in front, you're going to put one foot behind, all right? I want you to be in a position where you have to be up on the toe in this back foot. Can everybody see themselves in the mirror? Maybe. We'll go there. I want you to feel like you're 90 and 10. Most of your weight is back here on this back foot, or on this, forward on this front foot, and you're able to kind of tap this back toe, okay? From there, you're gonna start with like a nice soft knee, okay? But now it doesn't bend anymore. We're not doing a single leg squat. Our goal here is to do an RDL, basically a reverse deadlift here, okay? Nice soft knee, and now I want to move my pocket here backwards. This is how we're gonna get into this posterior chain. So watching my pocket here in the mirror, if you can see it, or this pocket if you're over on that side, hinge, so you're trying to drive my butt back, but I'm trying to keep my back pockets as high as I can. I'm gonna stop about there, and then coming back up nice and tall. If you do this right, you should feel a little bit of glute, a little bit of hamstring, all right? But there are a lot of ways to get around this. If I'm not good at moving through my hips, and I just don't move my pocket, and I just kind of hinge through my lower back, you can get to that same position, but you're not actually doing the exercises as well as you could, all right? And so I want you guys to really rep this here. Soft knee, try to drive your hips back, keeping your chest up and your back pockets up, and trying to feel like you're feeling a little bit of glute, a little bit of hamstring. Do a couple more. I want to give you one or two more cues in a second, but I want you to try to find it as athletes first. It's a lot quieter here than I thought it was going to be, so I appreciate you guys.
They're just stunned.
It is kind of an information overload, but some of it will stick, I think. Okay, a lot of you guys are very mobile, which is a good thing at baseline, or isn't really a good or a bad thing, but our body likes to live on this spectrum between mobility and stability. It wants to be as close to the middle as possible. If you, as a teenage girl, has more mobility than the average bear, that means there's going to be a greater requirement of stability to, one, prevent injury, and two, be athletic, okay? That being said, when a couple of you guys are hinging, you're trying to get deeper into that hinge, and you're just straightening this knee to get there. And I want you to feel like you guys lock your knee here where it is in space. So like, if you physically got to put one finger there and like float it in front, as you go to hinge, try not to let that knee straighten, keep it where it is in space. And that should change the exercise a little bit for you. I imagine you've all done single leg RDLs before, where the back leg is floating. We're trying to take the balance element out of it so we can really get into this posterior chain, get into this glute. Who isn't feeling glute and hamstring? Is anyone not feeling it and just not saying it?
Does everyone know what a glute and hamstring is?
That's a great
the
question.
second question. Yeah.
Glute maximus is the one that you see. We have two other important glutes, and we'll get there in a minute because it's like my favorite exercise. We have glute medius and glute minimus that sit out here on the side, all right? But before we get into that, does it make sense why we need to be good at something like this? All right? If we were to weight an exercise like this, got my 100-pound The goal here is if you were to do this in the weight room, I'm trying to get this kettlebell to go straight down. And the only way to do that is to hinge my hips out of the way to drive that down and then push through my glute to come back up. Lots of ways to cheat. I can just go through my lower back. But that's not the exercise, right? That's not what we're trying to load. And I can just shift my weight back here. Again, not really the exercise. The goal here is to try to control that weight by controlling what your pelvis is doing. Does that make sense? Cool. I only have one kettlebell, so I'm not going to pass it around for 30 minutes for us to practice that, but we'll have it so you guys can try it later. All right? Cool. Questions? No. Are you just saying that? All right. I want to go back to what we just talked about, femurs, Lego people, and angles. All right? Because our femurs attach at an angle to our pelvis, there's a little bit of this external rotation, but then your midline of your body is pretty far away from these femurs, and for ladies, this angle to where your knees actually fall underneath your pelvis is greater than for males, all right? And so because of that, well, we call this a Q angle, because of that wider Q angle, there's a greater demand on our hip and our foot to control the forces going through this knee. All right? Now, this motion, this is something you're not going to remember. This motion is valgus at the knee, and this motion is varus at the knee. All right? When injuries happen, is uncontrolled valgus force. All right? It's typically the speed of valgus that causes injury, not necessarily the presence of it. If you look at any elite athlete, Mia Hamm, Michael Jordan, whoever, if they're going to plant and cut, there's going to be some valgus as they're changing direction. But the speed at which their knee creates this force is under control compared to somebody who has like an ACL injury or something like that, all right? And so our goal is to try to teach you guys how to control what's happening with this knee valgus to try to prevent some of this injury. On top of that, no, I'm gonna save that concept actually for a minute, okay? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go in sidelining like a side plank, all right? So come on down. I gotta show you guys I can do it too. I'm never just gonna have you do something that I can't do. So in a side plank, elbow goes underneath your shoulder, bottom knee is gonna be bent just like this. Sorry for it being on the tile floor versus something else, but I want you to make sure that your pockets are stacked on top of each other. You guys ever play like foosball, like table soccer? You know how they have like a post through their hips? Try to keep your post pointing towards the floor, all right? Bottom leg is bent, top leg is straight. You're gonna come on up into that side plank and then lift that top leg, okay? Bottom hip, you're gonna try and drive that down and back while your top leg comes forward for a counterbalance. And then you're gonna drive your bottom hip up and forward. Down and back, up and forward. And if you do that right, you should feel a ton of that glute there on the side, all right? I'm gonna give you a couple of cues, just do 3 or 4 more reps. I just wanna see how you guys are doing this one, kind of looking around the room.
Can I do mine on my other side?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. It'll be good for you to do that one. Not on the tile floor, of course, but.
Wait, what did you do?
All right. Okay, I'm gonna give you a couple ideas here. We care less about how far down we go, and more about controlling this hip going down and back. Like we're folding here into a V, and then driving that up and forward. Ideally, this rep, you want to leave like a piece of paper between your hip and the floor. You should feel a ton of that side of your hip working. Is that where we're feeling it? Anybody not feeling it there? You're so quiet.
I feel it
No!
I feel like
You're feeling more adductor. Interesting.
Wait,
Bring your bottom knee forward a little bit more, so it's just more in a V.
wait, what?
So here, come up top, because that's actually a really good cue to give you. You did that to yourself. On your left side here. And so for her, we're gonna bring this knee forward, and this one's gonna be straight. You're just gonna keep this hip on top, so roll it there. So come up in your side plank, and I want you to feel like you're floating this leg. Good. And bring this hip down and back, and then bring it up and forward. Good. That's a different exercise, isn't it? Uh-huh. You're feeling that outside of that hip, right?
Yeah.
Good. Well, that was only 2. We're gonna do 5 of those.
Oh,
Hey, come on.
Oh, honey.
Now, as she gets tired, you see if she's kind of like rolling backwards, where like her right pocket is starting to point towards the sky. Try to bring this
Am I done
top.
yet?
Yeah, one more. Rock this hip forward just a little bit. There you go. Now you see why we're doing that exercise. So that glute medius is all about controlling the speed at which that valgus works. All right. Josie, you have a different form here that I want to point out. So come on up here one more time too. And one more person. Either side, whichever you want to do. Okay, so rock your hips forward a little bit more. Good. And then lift your hips up for this rep, and then go ahead and go back. You see how she brings this top leg forward a little bit more, and then come on up. That's going to help counterbalance this motion so you don't feel like there's a ton of extra abs that you're trying to lift yourself with. Do 2 more. As she swings this leg forward, her hips can go back, and she brings that up and forward, down and back, up and forward. Everybody try that one more time just to make sure you ingrain that. Thank you. Yeah. Down and back, up and forward. Try to bring that top hip forward a little bit. Everybody's kind of rolling a little bit back. Your body's trying to use what you're strong with. That's quads,
Wait,
that's
should
hip
my
flexors.
thing- Should my leg be rotated like something like that?
The top of your knee, if there's a laser pointer, should be pointing straight ahead of you.
Okay.
That actually helped a couple other people, so good question. Okay, one more time. Does it make sense why we're doing something like this? Because if I don't have a how or what or a why, what the hell am I doing here? Right? Okay, questions. You can hop up. But we're going to do one more glute medius exercise that is, again, going to make you feel a little bit goofy. All right? Stand up here. Let's see. All right, you guys all get goodies. If you have one of these at home, take one and pass it on situation. I think those ropes will keep enough in there. Take one and pass it on. Okay, bring the exact amount.
This is the easiest one. It's like.
No! I'm one short.
Very close. Well, she's wearing jeans, so it's,
You'll have to share with a partner here. I'll give you this one afterwards, but it's a little tougher on purpose. Okay, we're still trying to work on this lateral control. This lateral is out to the side. This glute medius muscle, because ultimately if we can't control our pelvis, as we go to cut, change direction, that's where this happens, okay? And so we're gonna use this band because a lot of people know what clamshells are. You guys seen this exercise before? Does this look like running? Does that look like anything you do in lacrosse or soccer or softball? I hope not. Like if the answer was yes, let's talk to some coaches. But instead, we're gonna make it look like running because ultimately this muscle, it does this hip abduction, internal rotation, right? So if it was just that muscle working in a vacuum, that's what it would do. However, again, does this look like running? Does this look like softball or soccer? No. That muscle's most active when our foot is connected to the ground. We call that closed chain, and it's all about controlling the position of this pelvis here, okay? If we don't have a stable platform, how are we gonna push and be athletic through our engine? So that's what we're trying to strengthen here, is improve the stability of that platform, okay? This band goes around your knees, above your knees, sorry. Okay, it's supposed to be restrictive. Okay, we're gonna start in a ready position, all right? That position we did a squat in earlier, okay? We're gonna start with this hinge that we talked about. You're kind of sitting into a tall chair, like a bar stool, something like that. We wouldn't sit in a chair like this, right? No, I hope not. Start with this hinge like you're sitting into a bar stool, and then we're gonna shift our body weight over to one side, all right? And bend the opposite leg. Maybe spread out so you guys don't topple into each other back there. From here, pelvis and shoulders stay nice and level. Your goal is to not tilt over that leg, because your body's gonna do everything it can to make this easy. We're trying to make it work, okay? Keeping that pelvis level, you're gonna move this leg that's floating now out and away behind you at like a 45-degree angle. You control this band, don't let it control you. The main cue here is as you move that leg, your hip's gonna wanna come up. Try to keep that down. As you press that out, you guys are starting to feel that stance leg working really hard, right? Who's not feeling that leg that they're balancing on work? Because I need to use you as an example if it's not. Not quite. Bands. That's just what's on your shirt.
Oh.
Come on up here, I'm gonna use you. Just waddle like
Okay.
you. Yeah. We call these flamingos because relatively obvious reasons. So go ahead and face the room here. And so show me your form that you were just doing, and I'm gonna give you a cue here to make it just work a little bit harder. So that hinge, ready position. I want you to bend that left knee just a little bit more. Good. And now as you drive this out, feel like you push this knee over your third toe. You feel how that kind of pushes out against the band a little bit? Does that fire this up a little bit more? Good. It's the same cue as not tilting here. We're just trying to turn that muscle on so you have a more stable platform. Make sure you guys switch sides and try the other side too. Thank you. And see if that cue helps you find that spot a little bit more. One more cue, because I see it going around the room a little bit. If there was a laser pointer on the front of your knee, it stays facing forward. So when you go to move, we're not going like this. We're trying to keep that here, okay? When you do that, don't let this pocket come up. We're trying to stay low as you drive that out. You should feel the stance glute working a ton here. There's no one exercise that's a cure-all, that's gonna bulletproof you, period, but this one will get damn close. Nice. That's way harder than you guys thought it was gonna be, huh? Good, it should be. I wouldn't have you do it if it wasn't hard. Okay, questions on that? Not so bad. Good. If you don't have one of those, take it with you. All right, step out of the band here.
Is that something you'd have them do
I would love
regularly?
it as a warm-up.
Okay,
Yeah, like
great.
as a warm-up pre-practice, as a warm-up pre-lift, something like that. Try to make sure we wake up these muscles so they're ready to help us when we're out on the field, okay? We're gonna combine some of the foot and ankle stuff with some of the hip stuff that we've done today. We're gonna do an exercise I like to call gate swings, okay? We're gonna start in a single leg stance like we have been working on because running is a how many leg activity?
One.
Single leg activity, right? And so we're gonna start with a little bit of that bend in that knee, like we've been working at. I don't want you guys to feel like you're doing too much of this. Whenever we talk about a soft knee, we need a little bit of that hinge too. Because if you were to do a box jump, would you do a box jump from here? Please, no. Hips go down and back, and then that's where we're trying to be explosive from, okay? From that single leg, hands on your hips. If you got a big Wild West belt buckle, I want you to try to turn your belt buckle 90 degrees. When you get out to the side, you're gonna tap that toe. And then you're gonna feel like you pull pull through your foot to bring your pelvis back in front of you, all right? And so try to rotate, tap, and then pull yourself back forward. If you do this right, you should feel a little bit of the glute that we've been working, and you should feel your foot kind of pronate or flatten to the ground. This is for the camera. Rotate, your foot comes down, and then you pull through your foot to get back tall. Now, a lot of you guys I think are strong enough to do this where you can rotate, not touch. Really bad example because I almost lost my balance. But rotate here and pull yourself back forward without the toe touch. Try that a little bit. We're trying to get all these things to work together. Foot and ankle, hip, muscles around your engine here. Nice. People in the back move away from the wall a little bit so that you can just reach a little bit further if that's easy. Bring it back forward. I mean, what does this look like? You've got to turn and run for the ball to go the other way, right? We need to be able to have a nice stable single leg and push away, and that's what we're trying to get into here. Okay? Questions? You guys are working harder than you thought you would this afternoon, yeah? Kinda? Cool. I've been intentionally vague about sets and reps. A lot of the exercises we're going through, I think, are good as like a strengthening program. Then we've got to do multiple sets. We've got to do a decent number of reps, 8 to 12, something like that, just to fire up the muscles for muscular endurance. But that's not life. Like, I know there's only so many minutes in a warm-up. I know there's so many minutes in a practice. And so I do think that these are valuable pre-practice to just make sure your body's ready to go. Just try to set you up for success as possible. 5 reps is going to do more than doing none reps, all right? But if we're going to be doing more in the gym, let's set it up towards more structured, biased more towards muscular endurance, which is just more reps, okay? Questions? Nobody's got any questions? This is fun. Okay. Where do I want to go next? How much time we got? It's a fast hour. Cool, let's talk hamstrings, because I haven't talked hamstrings yet. All of the ligaments in our body. Most people know the ACL just because it's kind of glamorized a little bit. All the ligaments on our body are the last ditch effort for resisting motion, okay? Your ACL is your anterior cruciate ligament. Don't expect you to remember that, but effectively, your femur and your tibia, that's your knee joint, okay? We have muscles that control this roll and this glide, all right? If I'm going to bend my knees, there's always a roll that happens and a glide that happens. That doesn't just happen because of the shape of the bones. Your muscles create that motion, all right? When there's some sort of imbalance in how much they roll and they glide, the joint tends to hurt. When there's some sort of imbalance in the force being produced on one side versus the other side, muscles tend to hurt. It's not a cut and dry end all be all, but that's kind of generally the issue. Our ACL, all it does is prevent too much of this anterior translation of the tibia. There are a lot of ways to create that force in sport when it's a contact injury, but typically ACLs are kind of like 55-45 contact versus non-contact, right? And so often what happens is that the foot is planted and we move it in an extraneous way. Typically this knee valgus is involved, right? And then we kind of tumble over our knee and there's some sort of too much of a translation at that tibia. But it's not just our ligaments holding us together. Our muscles do that too. And our hamstrings, although this is their main function, because of where they start right here on our sit bone and where they connect on the other side of our knee, they can create this motion, but they also prevent that anterior translation of the tibia. And so that's why more hamstring strength typically means lower or reduced potential for a non-contact ACL injury. All right, so if there's like one exercise you guys remember, it's this next one that we do. All right, Josie, I need you for this one. All right, come on up. This is like the level 3 of this exercise, but I didn't have the option to bring a big like bench or box in here. So go here on your back. We're gonna do some hamstring bridges and we're gonna like form a little line. You guys are all gonna try this because I think it's meaningful. All right, so this leg, this one's gonna go straight, keep your thighs parallel. And then Josie's gonna load her, go relax first. The ball of her foot here is where she's on the foam roll, and her cue is to try to keep her heel below the ball of her foot, okay? Both thighs parallel, she's gonna do a bridge, pause, down nice and smooth, good, do 3 more. And she's trying to control that foam roll and not let it roll away from her. She's making it look really easy, but it's not very easy. Good, nice. My only cue for you is less toes. Try to turn that off a little bit, do 1 more. And that's more hamstring now, huh? Good. All right, seriously, form a line. We're all gonna do 5 reps. Who's next? Come on, let's roll. Get on up here. Ball of your foot on the foam roll. Yeah, we do either.
Sorry, my toes are really gross.
Never. Not the worst I've seen, I promise. Elevate it here, keep those thighs parallel, keep your heel low, good. Lift your hips up off the floor, nice, and back down. Do you feel hamstrings there? Is that the understatement of the afternoon? Good, nice and smooth, good. And as you get better at this, we can weight it, My main cue for you would be to get your belt buckle a little higher. Yeah, that's work, right? Perfect. We can add a longer hold to make it harder. Who's next? Let's roll.
Yeah, I did. It got comfortable.
No, that's good. I don't expect you to know. It's all good. Bring this foot down a little bit more. And then just keep this thigh parallel to this one. Good.
You're doggy.
And then lift your hips up.
Oh, I thought you like
A little less toes. That's hard to do, huh?
Yeah.
Good. One more cue for you. Scoot closer to the foam roll here. Awesome. And now you'll feel a hamstring. That's what it should be. Who's next?
Ew, what is that?
Let's
Maybe, he can take a look at mine.
Looks good. A little closer though. I'm like not looking at you. So it's all. Yep, but like relax back and just bring this a little closer to you and go kind of follow your foot there. This leg is straight. Good. Lift your hips up. Nice. Higher than that. You're stronger than that. There you go. Lots of hamstring, right? That's what your hamstring should be doing. Good. One more. If we're able to bulletproof this, this is kind of where this stride
It came on my 40 page. I was like, wait,
recovery
it's
comes from at like your top end speed. If you've got good hamstring speed, right?
Wait.
That's how you make
Wait
it
for what
fast.
reason? Did you not do
Strength
it?
instead of speed.
You weren't that heat. Was it the first year?
Nice. Straightening, good, a little less toe.
Wait, so how do you like know when to go? Are you guys
Nice.
just all lined
Just a little
up?
closer. I think that's what's happening here. Is you're kind of like
What
sliding.
heat were you guys?
instead.
Or does it not? It did not.
Yeah, that's
Like
work.
it wasn't like last season.
Shaking, right? Because your body's trying not to let this roll away from you. Good work. It's supposed to be hard.
Like Massachusetts, like Arkansas. Yeah.
That's not ideal.
The most what?
Nice.
Oh my
A little
God.
less foot on the foam.
Well, that's 90%. Oh, so the white people.
Don't shortchange your rep. Go 100% all the way up.
Oh my God.
Yeah! Different, right? One more like that.
I know. Yeah. I was thinking.
That's a hamstring.
Yeah.
Who's up?
Look at the hair she has in her butt. You have some wet on your butt.
Yeah. No.
Nice. Good.
I know.
Less foot.
Yes,
Foot down a little bit more. Heel low.
Yeah, fever
Nice.
started in December.
That's hard, huh? Don't shortchange your rep a little
Oh
bit.
yeah, I can see it.
Good, one more.
A compliment.
Awesome. I want you guys to control the foam roll. Don't let it control you. Alright? Who's next?
That was really good.
Trying to bulletproof you guys as best I know how, you know. Perfect. That leg straight. Awesome. Heel stays low. Let this heel drop. Yeah, there you go. Now come up. That's a different exercise, huh?
Oh, I feel that.
Good. Two more just like that. Awesome.
Here, I'm gonna get you later.
Good. I can put that looks good. Perfect. Next. Good work. Come on, fans. I know your name.
I was like, she's also a speaker, she's on T.
Awesome.
She's like, no, I changed up.
Good. Come on up. A little closer, whatever's called. Yeah. Scoot your butt.
Those kind of
Toes off. Good.
Yeah.
This guy.
Why are you working so loud?
Feel that hamstring? Good. One more.
I was like,
Nice. Good. This has the added benefit in when we're at high end speed and we're doing a full length stride.
Wait, like, what's in the middle of it?
there's a point where we're trying to push the earth away through glute and through hamstring. Most hamstring pulls happen right at the origin because we're pushing with hamstring too much instead of with our engine with glute. And so this has the added benefit of asking glute to work while that hamstring's working. All right, let's see it.
actually mine is 2 days.
Oh, yeah, you're like,
Nice. Closer. Good. And straighten that one.
Good.
Good. See how your toes are curling over. Roll your foot back. Keep your heel low. Feel the difference? Don't shortchange your reps a little higher with your hips. Yeah. Good.
Oh, yeah.
That's a burner, isn't it? Good. I wouldn't have you do it if it wasn't hard. All right, who had an icy? Come on, jeans. There's you, jeans. Perfect. That thing is parallel, so close to the phone roll.
Oh, where's
Here we go. And then keep that.
Oh, cool.
Nice. What are you feeling?
Wait, are my call like scanning out hoodies like
Nice. And you're getting tired and your foot's sliding this way, right? So try to bring your heel back down. So that's why we do that exercise.
I don't like this, but.
Nice.
Well,
Perfect.
he told me
Think that was
I
everybody?
know, but
Get up here,
no,
softball.
schedule, but on the website it has a schedule. It's like the weeks and it's like Station Fields, CBA.
Looks good. Bring your heel
Well, I
down
don't
a
want
little
it.
bit. That leg goes straight. Perfect.
But I
You
like
have
it.
a similar situation as James and Josie, where you got long femurs, right? So it's going to be even more imperative for you to control this from the hip, from that hamstring. Makes good. Exactly. A little less toes though. Nice. You see how you're, you see you're like straightening your leg as you go. Try to stay where you are. Especially in your hamstring. Yeah, because it has another spot.
You're really big. I was like, oh,
Now you see why we do that
That
one.
sounded like.
Okay, two more concepts for you.
I know.
A tight muscle is a weak muscle, a weak
And I still love it. I was
muscle.
like, yeah.
What was that? Well, muscles only get tight for two reasons: damage or compensation. If you're feeling an extra tight muscle and you haven't had like a new injury or something like that, it's because that muscle is working harder than your ass. Then it's working harder than. Is it as strong for the job you're asking it to do?
So it's gonna grow really big.
So it is going to be tight and restricted and not grow as well, right? And so if you're feeling like your hamstrings are always tight, we need to add hamstring strength, not just stretch them.
No, but what if they get tight after you like work out?
That's different. That's because you've used them and you've expelled that available glycogen there in that muscle, and they're trying to recover from that.
Wait, so like anytime so like
So if you feel tight, you can stretch some stuff, and that's going to be easier, right? That's going to be a short-term change. But if you're trying to change that long-term tightness, we need to make sure that we're adding strength to prevent some of that stuff. All right? I have to hit you with one more like tool for your toolbox that I care about because I know what it's like to be a student athlete, and you've got to be a student first and do a lot of sitting, right? And so often when we feel like we have tight hamstrings, can most of you guys touch your toes? So I want you to take a mental picture. Take a mental picture of how far down you can go, because we're going to do an exercise and then we're going to retest. All right? And so we got a couple palms on the floor. We got a lot of toes touched, ankles touched.
thank you.
Nice. Okay. Mental picture, and now we're just going to grab some floor. Okay? And so lie here on your back. Go on. All right. This last exercise we're doing today, I want you to grab the back of one thigh with both hands and then straighten the other leg. Okay? From here, you're going to bring your knee up to your chest as far as it'll go. Take up all that slack. And then kick one knee as straight as you can go. And then bring your toes up towards your face. Pause for a second, and then in reverse order. So then it's ankle relaxes, knee relaxes, hip relaxes. So hip, knee, ankle, ankle, knee, hip. Good. Do 3 more on that side. Does anyone not feel a stretch here?
Like kind of just not a good stretch.
Not a good stretch where?
Yeah, yeah.
In your hamstring.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Can I use an example?
Yes.
Perfect. Come on up here, here in the middle. Everybody sit up here. I want to show you something.
I know. That's
Okay.
with the one.
All right. Sit up here so I can show you guys something here. Let me know when you feel a hamstring stretch. All right. About there. That's where I start to get resistance. Yeah, about here. If I add this, does that add more stretch? Does this add more stretch?
Oh, yes.
This takes them off, right?
Yeah.
We'll test both sides because we gotta be thorough. Josie, you remember doing this? Yeah. Same idea here. More.
Do you stress
Yeah.
falling?
More than
Or
stress.
stress?
Yeah, I stretch it more.
and less,
Yeah.
right? So, who can answer this question?
Yeah.
Oh, also this one was like, one I used on the thing.
Ah.
Yeah, like Titans.
Not surprised there, not surprised there. Do our hamstrings go all the way down to our ankles?
No.
No.
Right, so if we're stretching, if we're seeing more stretch at our hamstring and we're moving our ankle, we have to be stretching something else, right? So what makes that full journey? Our nerves, right? So we have, our nerves are like copper wires. We've got our nerves in the middle, we've got the plastic around the outside. The plastic in this analogy is like the connective tissue, the protective stuff around those nerves, okay? Because we do all these different positions as humans, right? We need to have those nerves be able to glide nice and smooth. The trouble with that is 8 hours a day you guys sit at a desk like this. And this is a shortened length for those nerves, all right? Our goal here with this exercise that we just did, it's called a nerve glide. We're trying to take up the slack at each level so that we can get that nerve to glide nice and smooth, all right? You guys all did one side, let's switch and do the other side. When you go to do this here, we're gonna take some slack off of the system. I should have showed everybody this. I'll let them do it.
Oh, it's from Twitter.
Do the other one.
Oh, yeah, I did this one.
I picked up over.
What's your name?
Oh, you know.
Cool. It's a pretty good stretch, right? When you're done with 5, put on the sit up. Get a little bit of hip flexor, a little pinchy there in the front, right?
Yeah.
Like Monday, Wednesday.
If only I had more than an hour.
Yeah, I feel it a lot.
Still, I was never.
That's a different conversation, but it does let us know that we need to continue to work on that. What I want to show you guys is that this is all the same like nervous system. Like it's all connected here. And so I want you guys to watch. Do this rep on this side. And so her hip goes here, her knee goes there, and then she can bring her toes up, right? This is all the same nervous system. So if we relax, 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 bring this down, bend this knee, put your foot flat, the other one. There you go, just like that. And now we took intention off of the nervous system, and now she can go further with her hip, she can go further with her knee, she can go further with her toes. You see how that's all kind of connected? And then bring your chin up to your chest, and then do one more rep. And that adds more tension back, right?
Oh, I feel it there.
She can't quite go so far. That's a conversation. But you can see how this is like actually the nerves that you guys are stretching. If there's anything I want you to take away from today, it's this one and flamingos, all right? That nerve glide will make you feel less stiff, less stuck, less restricted when you guys get out on the field, okay? Because if you're going out to play a game where you need like 100% and you've been sitting at a desk all day, let's give yourself the chance to be as mobile, as explosive, as fast as possible.
That's a really good point. We have trouble when they sit at a desk all day.
And then you hop on a bus and drive an hour and a half because we live in New Hampshire, right? And so we're trying to just free up, like 5 reps there, stand up, and now let's retest how far you can reach to touch your toes. And I'm pretty sure 100% of you guys will reach a little bit further.
Oh my god.
We got hands on the floor over here, which we did before. She touched her toes when she got to ankles before. We got backs of fingers over here. And so it's not hamstring tightness, it's just this dural, this connective tissue around your nerve tightness. All right? That's about all I could cram into an hour. Now, please ask me some questions because there's too much in here. I'm trying to get it out.
Wait, so which ones would you recommend doing like right before practice or
Yes.
all?
All of them. No. Definitely do some nerve glides. Definitely do some flamingos. I'll throw you a link, Doug, if you want to buy a bunch of these bands.
Okay.
Flamingos.
Yeah.
Flamingos were these ones, right?
Oh.
The
Should we
nerve.
like, I have a question.
Yes.
Should we like be actively pushing your knee out?
If you don't feel that glute without thinking about that, then yes.
Okay.
You shouldn't default to hanging out on the outside of your foot though, because we want our tripod foot to be down. All right?
Okay.
If we're thinking longevity and being nice and strong, I'd love for you to remember to do your foot ankle exercises. Toe yoga, arch yoga, Michael Jackson's. That'll help prevent ankle injuries. The better proprioception you have, the better you know where your foot and ankle is in space, the less restricted you'll be, the less likely you are to roll one of those ankles. And so You're not going to be able to do all of these every day in every warm up, right? But the goal is to try to put some of those tools in the toolbox. All right. What's great is this is preserved for posterity. So you can
Yeah,
always
this will
go
be
back.
available, so if you wanna, probably a good idea to, in the next few days, look through it, and it'll just reinforce some of those ideas.
What Josie has is we keep a phone note of all her exercises, or I have patients come in and record them, right? And so the goal is to like have a little cheat sheet, have something that you can go to, whether if it's not whole for the whole team, at least it's for you, right? Help you feel a little bit better on the field. All right. Questions? There's not really too much for these things. Like we're trying to change the pattern and optimize how you guys control this force. And so the more often you do it and the stronger you get with it, the better you'll be at it. All right. Any other question? If they come up, I'm a resource for you. Shoot me an email, shoot me a text. I want to be available for you guys so you can have the best season as possible. I know you guys are in other seasons and stuff right now too. So same extends to your teammates. All right. Cool. Throw your socks back on, shoes back on if you want.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Okay, so I got my knee done too.
Cool.
And I went for a run. But the next day I was like so sore.
Yeah.
I wouldn't,
Was it tender, like
it like
when you
just
would
wouldn't,
load it? When
I
you
couldn't
would
get
start?
full extension.
When was your knee done?
October.
So we're 7 months out? 8 months out.
October.
8 months out.
Or no, 7.
You're making her think now too.
Yeah. I was messing that up too.
Kidding, no, it's,
She's 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah,
Six.
I always forget.
Um,
You're just like, just school.
does that happen every time you run?